Welcome to Scott Fox After 9. Brand new week is underway, and this is going to be an interesting one. We've got the Prime Minister over in Davos right now for the World Economic Forum. And in case you missed it, yesterday I dropped a bonus episode of After 9. I was trying to explain what Prime Minister Carney didn't do a very good job at explaining the other day when he was over in China. What is the New World Order? You likely by now heard the Prime Minister talk about the New World Order, but what is that? What does it mean? I tried to break it down for you in that bonus episode. It's about an hour long and it is full of audio. And one of the things that was particularly surprising to me when I listened to all of what the Prime Minister had to say, and you too can hear that in that bonus episode of the pod, I was really surprised at the extent of this deal with China. The way the mainstream media is painting this is, well, they dropped their tariffs on canola and seafood and we agreed to sell some of their cars. There's a lot more to it than that, and you can hear all about it. It's a bonus episode that dropped yesterday on Sunday, January 18th. If you want to go back and give it a listen, I highly recommend it. You're going to learn a lot, and that's basically the foundation for what we're going to be talking about over the next couple of months. Now, on today's episode, I'm not talking about the New World Order. I'm not going to talk about the World Economic Forum. Today, I want to talk about some very important things that are on top of my mind. Number one, it's breaking as I record this episode. The Buffalo Bills have fired head coach Sean McDermott after that insane loss on Saturday. In case you missed it, after that loss, Sean McDermott speaking to the media. Listen to this.
Yeah, so obviously I don't have the power to challenge, right? We're in overtime, so the flag is not an option to throw it down. So I called a timeout to try and get the process to slow down because it seemed like the process was not slowing down. It was a rather rapid unfolding of the review, if there was a review, and so I called a timeout to try and slow it down. It would seem logical to me. It would seem logical to me that it make a lot of sense that the head official would walk over and want to go and take a look at it just to make sure that everybody from here who is in the stadium to there are on the same page. That's too big of a play, in my estimation, too big of a play, in a play that decided the game potentially as well, to not even slow it down. And that's why I had to call the timeout. It's not what I wanted to do, but I had to do it in order to make sure that I understood what was going on and that they did take a look at it. And it's hard for me to, and I've had a chance to look at, it's hard for me to understand why it was ruled the way it was ruled. And if it is ruled that way, then why wasn't it slowed down? Just to make sure that we have this right. That would have made a lot of sense to me, to make sure that we have this thing right, because that's a pivotal play in the game. We have the ball at the 20, maybe kicking a game-winning field goal right there. So I'll just leave it at that. But I'm saying it because I'm standing up for Buffalo, damn it. I'm standing up for us. Because what went on is not how it should go down, in my estimation. That play, these guys spent 3 hours out there playing football, pouring their guts out, to not even say, hey, let's just slow this thing down. That's why I'm bothered.
In your eyes, was it catch down by contact?
In my eyes, it was. Yes, in my eyes, it was. But even if it wasn't, okay, let's just say that, and I'm being objective. Even if it wasn't, the players are owed, to me, hey, let's stop it, let's slow it down, let's put the head referee and give him a chance to look at the monitor just to make sure.
I agree wholeheartedly with Sean McDermott. Now, I'm also not all that upset about this decision to let him go. I know there's a lot of people who feel bad for Sean after getting screwed over the way the whole team got screwed on Saturday in Denver. And yeah, I firmly believe the Bills got screwed there. You know, if you tell me that's a completed catch, great. That's something I can get behind. If you tell me it was an incomplete pass, I could even get behind that. I wouldn't necessarily agree, but I could get behind it and see how they kind of came to that conclusion. To rule it a fumble and a turnover, I just don't understand where those referees were coming from when they made that call. You know what? Let me hear a little bit of this. The play-by-play. I was watching this live in the moment. Tony Romo and the guys up in the booth, even they seemed a little confused at the call. Listen to this.
They blocked it up perfectly. McMillan does a good job not getting... But we're going to need you on this one, Gene.
Yeah, this is really close. I'm not sure that Cooks has possession.
You can look at this a million different ways and determine that he did have possession. His knee touched the ground. The ball was in his hands. He had control of the ball. End of story. He was down by contact. That should have been the Bills' ball. They would have had the opportunity to end the game right then and there with a field goal. It would have been over, no overtime. Bills go on to face the New England Patriots. But that's not how it went down. And you know, I'm trying to figure out, why did they screw the Buffalo Bills? This should have been the year for the Buffalo Bills. There was very, very little opposition in their way. Some of the quarterbacks and teams that have given them so much trouble over the years, they're out. There's no Patrick Mahomes in the way this year. No Philadelphia Eagles in the way. The Bills had a shot. And I feel like the refs took it away from them. That was a terrible call. And Sean McDermott's right. They should have just slowed it down. Said, wait a second. There's a lot of confusion over this play. Teams need an explanation for why we're making this ruling, and work it out right there on the field. Don't just give the ball to the other team. Let them force overtime and then let them win it in overtime. The officiating was so bad, and I've been trying to ask myself, why did they do that to the Bills? Why? Here's what I think. I think football is incredibly corrupted by sports gambling. I'll just say it. I feel that way. You know, Denver was favored in that game because they were the higher seed, but the money was on Buffalo. And Buffalo should have won that game. They're a way better team than the Denver Broncos, in my estimation. That would have cost Vegas a lot of money, and I guess the referees, maybe they're just there for risk mitigation for the gambling folks. Maybe that's all their job is, just to make sure that the right team wins and to make sure that Vegas doesn't lose a whole ton of money. That's the only thing I can think of. Watching Josh Allen after the game, man, it gutted me.
It's extremely difficult. I feel like I let my teammates down tonight.
Your emotions, you normally aren't this emotional.
I don't think Josh Allen let him down. Josh did not have his best game. And despite him not having his best game, the Bills were still in it. They almost won that game. In fact, if that call had gone a different way, they probably would have won that game. Nobody can say for certain if they would have made the field goal, but a 20-yard field goal is about as routine as you get. The Bills would have won that game, in my estimation. The referees took that away from them, and the fans in Buffalo have every right to be livid. From the offensive line, Dion Dawkins.
Simply that. I hate to keep it short, but we love you, you know. We're thankful for him.
He said he feels like he let you guys down. How do you react when your quarterback who's done so much for you says that to you guys?
He let us down.
Thanks, Tim.
Man, it's hard to hear, isn't it? How about the guy at the center of all the controversy? The guy who, in my estimation, made the catch we wanted him to make. Brendan Cooks. Here's him after the game.
Of course, I'm always thinking I caught it. Yeah.
But I mean honestly, when you look at the replay, did you think you caught it down by contact?
I feel that way, but at the end of the day, it don't matter ultimately. I think we all feel that way. You work so hard. Personally, just so thankful to be a part of this. And I look back and like, man, what can I have done to be able to alleviate some of that pressure from him? You just love this game so much, and when you come up short like this, it's gonna sting for a long time. There's no, next week. Just love it.
Have you seen a replay of the play?
No, I have not. Like I said earlier, I'm always think I caught it.
Don't you worry, Brandon. Don't you worry. You did catch that ball. The referees screwed Buffalo so badly in that game, and I can't figure out why, other than the sports gambling aspect of it. That's the only reason I can think that the referees would make such a blatantly wrong call. And then if you think about it, The very next day, New England versus Houston, same situation, referees ruled the other way on the exact same play. It's crazy what they did to the Buffalo Bills. I'm a Bills fan. I know, I admit it. I'm biased. I'm going to say that. I think most Buffalo Bills fans are going to say that. But just because we're Bills fans and just because we're biased doesn't mean we're not right. What happened on Saturday was wrong. The Bills won that game. And Josh Allen, true leader. Don't be mad at Deion Dawkins. Don't be mad at Brandon Cooks. Don't be mad at James Cook. Don't be mad at any of the guys. Be mad at me. I let the team down. Trying to accept the responsibility and put the entire team on his back like he has done all season long. Brandon Cooks, he doesn't accept Josh Allen trying to take all the blame.
So he let you guys down. What would your message be to him?
I mean, at the end of the day, he's been carrying us all year. And, the way I think about it is, somebody step up to be able to alleviate some of that from him. And when you're great and you feel like you have to do so much, you have the opportunity to be able to force some of those things. And that's what I think about Josh. He's the greatest quarterback in this league. Everybody else around him got to come up, be able to make plays. So he doesn't always have to be the one to feel like, man, I got to win this game.
Yeah, man, it is so hard to hear. Let's do one more from the Buffalo Bills. This is Tre'Davious White talking about the refereeing in that game right after. Raw, emotional. He's angry. Some players are sad. Some players are angry here, but let's hear it.
The interference at the end, was that a pure ticky-tack foul that they called?
I believe so. I thought that, I didn't interfere with the guy. When the ball got there, I swiped through, knocked the ball down, and fell on top of him. And, I just think that the crowd probably played a big-time factor in that. And also, referees are human, man, and, people make mistakes. And I just think that it should be up to the players to decide the game, man. With a game that's fought so hard, come down to the wire. Plays like that, there's a professional bang play. As a defensive back, man, that's what you want. Take the guy to the ground and finish the play. And referees, they just don't know ball, man. I just think that, whenever a guy don't look back for the ball, especially on the defensive side of the ball, which you don't have to when you're out of phase, which I was out of phase and I caught back up with the guy and played through his hands. Once the ball got there, I didn't touch him before the ball got there. I feel like I finished through the pocket like I'm coached to do. And that's what it was, and I just think that they just had bad judgment on that play.
Okay, so on one hand, critical of the referees. On the other hand, saying they're human and they make mistakes. That's why we have instant replay. Again, back to what former coach Sean McDermott said at the beginning of this episode. Why didn't they just slow it down and say, wait a second, let's make sure we've got this right. Get the crew chief, go look at the monitor, make a final determination, explain it to both teams because it was a weird play. I just don't understand why they wouldn't do it unless that was the outcome they wanted. Man, I am gutted as a Bills fan. I just feel so bad for the players, for the team, for the city. It's so bad. One more. One of my favorite players on the Bills. This is Dawson Knox.
The type of leader he is, the type of man he is, he's always going to try to put it all on his shoulders. And that's what gives us so much respect and so much love for him. But we try to let him know, it's not just on him. He carries the weight of this whole franchise, of this whole city on his shoulders. And that's a type of pressure that I can't even fathom. So just trying to pick him up and let him know, man, we put up 30 points on arguably the best defense in the NFL, and he gave us every chance to win possible. So it's never just on him. Even though he'll try to do that, we have to remind him, it's on all of us. There's plays that all of us want back. There's plays that all of us have messed up on. But that's just the nature of his character, that he's going to try to hold that responsibility, but that's unfair to him, and it's never just on him or just on one player. So we'll be there for him. We'll pick him up. He'll be fine. He's the best player in the world, and as long as we got him on our team, we got a chance to win every game.
Truer words have never been spoken when talking about the Buffalo Bills. So the head coach is out. I don't have all the details. Like I said, that is just breaking as I record this episode. I might have more tomorrow, or I might just leave it. Doesn't matter how much complaining we do. The season is over. Nothing's going to change that. But I feel like the Buffalo Bills are owed something from the NFL. You know what? Bump them up to the top of the list for hosting a Super Bowl. Do something like that. Give them a better draft pick. There's got to be something that they can do to at least partially compensate the Buffalo Bills for how badly they got screwed over on Saturday. And why is the general manager not fired? What's his name? It's Bean, right? Why is he still there, but the head coach is gone? This is a general manager who was content to let this team play it out all year without a marquee wide receiver. Why is that? Doesn't he own a little bit of responsibility for this too? Everybody agrees Josh Allen is part of the solution. Sean McDermott, we could debate that. General manager, I don't think this is a tough call at all. I'm really not sure why they didn't get rid of him. But friends, I got to move on from the Buffalo Bills. There are other things that I've got to fit into this episode. Happening now also as I record this episode, Ontario Premier Doug Ford is speaking at the Rural Ontario Municipal Association meeting. This is something that happens every single year, and the Premier is talking to mayors in small towns. There's a couple interesting things that so far have come out of this. I'll play you just a little bit of the Premier's intro here.
Rural Ontario is the engine of our provincial economy. It's home to more than 250,000 businesses, accounting for $116 billion in GDP, in critical industries like mining, forestry, and everything in between. But as we all know, President Trump's tariffs are threatening every part of our province, including rural Ontario. That's why our government has a plan to protect Ontario. A plan to stand up for every community in every corner of this great province. To do this, we're building an Ontario that is more competitive, more resilient, and more self-reliant, so we can stand up to tariffs, economic uncertainty, and whatever else comes our way. Folks, I always say we are an economic powerhouse. We never have to take a backseat to anyone, and we sure the heck don't have to take a backseat to President Trump.
Oh, boy. How's Protect Ontario going? Can we get an update on that? Because it seems like there's nothing in the way of wins, but a heck of a lot of job losses. And now it seems like Doug Ford can't even stand up for Ontario to Canada's Prime Minister. Prime Minister Carney went over and did that deal to allow Chinese electric vehicles into Ontario, into the Canadian market. And Doug Ford couldn't even stop that from happening. What exactly is Protect Ontario, and where's that going? Granted, you want to mine the Ring of Fire. Understood. Okay. You want to build some infrastructure. Fine. Good. Good for you. Small nuclear reactors. Absolutely. Go ahead. Fill your boots. I really don't care. It seems like Protect Ontario is really nothing more than slogans. If the Prime Minister can go out and flagrantly throw it in Doug Ford's face that he is ignoring Doug Ford by signing that deal with China and not even talking to the Premier. Why wasn't Doug Ford allowed on that trip with Mark Carney to China? Scott Moe from Saskatchewan was there. Why didn't Doug Ford come along? Were they afraid he was going to be a loudmouth and ruin the meetings? Were they afraid he was going to say something dumb? I don't know. But he wasn't there. And lo and behold, now we've got these Chinese EVs coming in. Mobile spy machines is what Doug Ford himself called them. Mobile spy machines. By the way, on those Chinese EVs, I have a question about that. They say they're going to sell 49,000 of them in the first year in Canada. My question is where? Where are they going to sell these? Because right now, if I want a Toyota, I go to the Toyota dealership. If I want a Kia, I go to the Kia dealership. If I want a Tesla, I didn't even know how to buy a Tesla, to be honest with you, but I assume there's dealerships for that too. We're not opening up dealerships for these Chinese EVs. So what, are we going to sell them on Facebook Marketplace? How are we going to buy these EVs? Where are they going to be on display? Are they going to rent space in like the old Hudson's Bay locations at the mall? I really don't understand how that's going to work, but apparently we're getting thousands of Chinese-made EVs into Ontario. And Prime Minister Carney says that'll actually be good for the auto sector. I'm not 100% sure how he came to that conclusion, but the folks in the auto sector, they certainly don't seem to feel that way. Here is more of Premier Ford.
I want to take a moment here to address the federal government's decision to reduce tariffs on Chinese-made electric vehicles. I'm extremely, and I say extremely, disappointed by this decision, which will directly impact our auto workers in the supply chains that support them, including many rural areas. I've made my position very clear to the Prime Minister, and I'm doing so again today, because we need to be doing everything we can to support our auto workers. The federal government needs to step up by removing its EV mandate, harmonizing regulations with our trading partners, and scrapping unnecessary fees that drive away investments. Folks, you hear there's jobs coming. There's no jobs coming. I can assure you, you can remember this year after year after this year. To even make sure you break even, you have to be producing 220,000 autos. When you let the Chinese come in and we get nothing back, but they're paying their workers $6 an hour, that's probably a high rate, to compete against our great auto workers. I will continue to stand shoulder to shoulder with our auto workers and make sure we stand shoulder to shoulder with Unifor, the hardworking people that right now are out of a job in Brampton, in Oshawa, and Ingersoll, but we have the best autos in the entire world. And when you have cheap autos coming in, not to mention cybersecurity, and I don't even know how they're going to get across the border at $15,000 less than what we can manufacture, and promising they'll manufacture. Well, they aren't going to be manufacturing over 200,000 vehicles anytime soon here in Ontario. And that's the break-even point for any auto manufacturer here. And guess what, folks? 80 to 90% of those vehicles go south of the border. So I'm not too sure if President Trump wants Chinese spy vehicles coming across the border, but I'm betting the answer is no. You know, when you get on your cell phone, it's the Chinese that are going to be listening to your, and I'm not making this stuff up, they're going to be listening to your telephone conversation. I find it ironic that the Prime Minister is using a burner phone and all his staff over in China, but we're making a deal, it's Huawei 2.0, to come back into Canada, and we get nothing but potential job losses in our factories right across the board. And there's over 500,000 people that are employed in the auto sector. And that doesn't include all those families that go out and do their grocery shopping, buy clothes, maybe put an addition on their home. So this is a serious, serious matter. They say it's only 49,000 vehicles. Folks, it's really 33% of the EV sales in Canada. And once the camel gets his head in the tent, his whole body's in the tent. And you aren't getting rid of him. Remember this speech. And yes,
Hold on a second here. Hang on, I'm having an epiphany. I think, after listening to that, we just found the new version of Protect Ontario. Doug Ford's been doing it wrong all along. There's Doug Ford for months following Prime Minister Carney around, telling him what a great job he's doing. Carrying water for the Prime Minister. For months, Doug Ford has been doing that. I was waiting for him to jump in there again and say, Mark Carney's doing a great job. That's Protect Ontario, Doug. Welcome to the party. It's amazing Doug has finally realized what most of the rest of us have known for a very long time. Protect Ontario means from Ottawa. Ottawa did this to Ontario. That was it. Donald Trump didn't bring Chinese EVs into our auto market. Mark Carney did that. Doug, there you go. You got to run with that, dude. Protect Ontario is now Protect Ontario from Ottawa, because that's where the problem is. Stand up to the Prime Minister. That's what people want you to do. They want you to stand up to the Prime Minister and truly protect Ontario. But will you do it? Because that would compromise your relationship with your little sleepover buddy there. So I don't know. I'm really not sure if Doug Ford is going to learn a lesson here. Hopefully, he saw the fight in people's eyes there at that meeting that he was speaking at. People were fired up. Yeah. We're mad at Mark Carney, not at Donald Trump in this particular case. Carney's the one who allowed these mobile spy machines in. Doug almost kind of went scorched earth on that. Is he afraid of upsetting the regime in Beijing? I don't know. But either way, that's the kind of Doug Ford that I want. That is protecting Ontario. That is standing up for Ontario anyway. Being critical of the Prime Minister, he shouldn't be afraid to do it. It works in many other provinces, and it would work here in Ontario as well. Friends, I got to keep moving through topics here because I'm already coming up on time. Maybe in hindsight, I'll look back on this episode and say, Scott, you're just too much of a Buffalo Bills fan. You spend too much time on the Bills in the opener, and now you are short on other stuff. I'm going to try and squeeze it all in, though. Here's a little blast from the past, my friends.
If you are involved in this protest, we will actively look to identify you and follow up with financial sanctions and criminal charges. Absolutely. This investigation will go on for months to come.
Little bit of the Ottawa police force there talking about the Freedom Convoy, which was, 4 years ago now. 4 years since the Freedom Convoy took place in Ottawa. In case you missed the news on Friday, they bury stuff like this going into the weekend. Anything they don't really want people talking about comes out in the Friday news cycle, and they hope that people forget over the weekend. And you're surely not seeing a whole lot of coverage about this on the CTV and the CBC News. So let me point that out. But the court has affirmed or confirmed that the lower court ruling was correct. It was unreasonable for our federal government to use the Emergencies Act to disperse the Freedom Convoy. That means the federal government violated all of our charter rights by putting the country into a national emergency. They didn't have the authority to do it. It wasn't reasonable. Justin Trudeau, Chrystia Freeland, Marco Mendicino, all of these characters. The court has now confirmed the lower court's ruling. It was unconstitutional to use the Emergencies Act to quell those protests. And in hindsight, when you look back on it and you look at what was going on in Ottawa there, I know. People in Ottawa say it was very irritating hearing the horns honking all the time. It was unsightly to look out the window from their nice ivory tower condos and see people partying and barbecuing and playing in bouncy castles on Wellington Street below. I've heard it all. You didn't like the protest. Well, we've got a lot of other protests that happen every single day across Canada, especially in our big cities, and usually linked to political issues from other parts of the world. Those protests, in my estimation, are far worse than anything people involved in the Freedom Convoy were doing. Now, in fairness, though, the Freedom Convoy did go on too long. I said that back then, and I will maintain that position. I thought if they had gone for the weekend, they would have had a large crowd there, prove their point that Canadians are not happy with the dystopian restrictions that Justin Trudeau was imposing. I thought if they'd gone there for a weekend, they could have made their point, gone home, all of this would have been fine. But they stayed too long. And I remember my old podcast is probably still online somewhere. I was saying at the time, you guys have made your point. You got to go home. Leave. This is not going to end well for you. And sure enough, it didn't. Well, a little vindication for the Freedom Convoy protesters. Again, the courts have said it was unreasonable for the federal government to use the Emergencies Act, and they have declared that was unconstitutional for them to do it. This is Marco Mendicino.
People who live in apartment buildings find that their front doors are locked and that fires are set in the hallways and corridors.
Point of order, Speaker.
It is...
Oui, Monsieur Mott. That statement right there has been proven false by the Ottawa Police Service, and there is no connection to the protesters whatsoever. And for this minister to suggest that is absolutely unacceptable at this committee.
The federal government flat out lied to try and get the public on their side. They wanted everybody to agree that they had to use the Emergencies Act, freeze people's bank accounts, send in armed forces to try and quell the protests, things that never happen for far more serious protests that are happening all the time across Canada. The court says it was unreasonable. That means our charter rights were violated.
It seems to single out some of your choices on freezing bank accounts and credit cards as being part of the reason where it's unreasonable in terms of the measures taken by the government. You defended those when you announced them at the time. Do you have any regrets on taking that measure in the light of this decision? Would you have done it differently based on what we've seen from the federal court today?
As I said in my opening remarks, we faced, as a country and as a government, an incredibly serious threat. a threat to the public safety of many Canadians, a threat to our national security, including our national economic security. We acted to secure and protect Canada and to secure and protect the national interest. It was not an easy time. These were not easy decisions. In making our decisions and choosing to act, we worked very, very hard with all levels of government, and we were very mindful of acting in such a way that the safety, the physical safety of all Canadians involved would be preserved.
That is Chrystia Freeland. Again, gaslighting. That was her commenting after the original ruling from the court that said it was unreasonable for them to use the Emergencies Act. That's her trying to justify it. Let's recap what she said. No, it was not a threat to our national security. No, it was not a threat to public safety. It was a threat to our national economic security because of blockades on the bridge and stuff like that. And you know what? I think they were two different protests. The people blocking the bridge and trying to snarl up supply chains, that was a totally different thing. Blocking an international border? No. I understand why the court ruled the way they did there. But in the case of the people outside the Parliament buildings, the actual Freedom Convoy protesters, I really don't understand how Chrystia Freeland can gaslight Canadians and say it was a threat to public safety. They were barbecuing and in bouncy castles. The horn honking, it was a lot. I totally understand that. But they lied about this. There's so much evidence. The cabinet ministers were joking behind the scenes, leaked text messages, notes that got scribbled, joking about how many tanks they should send in. Chrystia Freeland calling them terrorists and demanding that their bank accounts be frozen. And that was before we even had the conversation about freezing protesters' bank accounts. What happened with the Freedom Convoy was completely wrong, and now the courts have confirmed it. One more on this. Justin Trudeau on the inquiry into him using the Emergencies Act. Listen to this.
Threats of serious violence was the key ones.
And can you elaborate on what those threats were? What led to that conclusion?
Yes. And again, we went around the table with officials from all different agencies and heads of departments to talk about this. There was the militarization of vehicles, for example. We'd seen, weaponization of vehicles. We'd seen, cars ramming into police officers or other cars at Coots. We saw an incident like that in Surrey, I believe. We saw trucks used as potential weapons, certainly in Ottawa with their presence and unknown interiors. There was the use of children as human shields deliberately, which was a real concern both at the Ambassador Bridge and the fact that there were kids on Wellington Street, that people didn't know what was in the trucks, whether it was kids, whether...
Listen to that Joker scramble. Thank goodness the court made this decision. I'm so glad they made this decision, but unfortunately, there's no teeth to it. There's no consequence. That Liberal government, and arguably the current one, but we'll just leave it at the Trudeau government, countless ethics violations. Never any punishment. Never any real punishment for doing that. Violating Canadians' constitutional rights, doesn't seem like there's any issue with that either. Nothing's going to happen to them, and that's wrong. Could there be lawsuits? I hope there is. There's a lot of people who ended up debanked and shamed and doxxed and you name it because they participated in a peaceful protest against our government. The biggest mistake the Freedom Convoy made was being too effective. There was no way back then when the government was trying to implement their version of the New World Order, the one world government, that was part of it. COVID kicked it off. There was absolutely no way Justin Trudeau was going to allow any dissension. It was embarrassing to him. Other world leaders were phoning him saying, what the hell's going on in Canada? Your whole country seems to be revolting. He shut that down and he sent a message. You will not oppose this government any longer. You will not go against the narrative. You will not embarrass the Justin Trudeau and the Chrystia Freeland. The protesters did what they had to do, what they were entitled to do. They held a peaceful protest. And I'm talking specifically about Ottawa here. What happened in Coutts, what happened at the Ambassador Bridge and any other bridges, that's arguably a different story. I'm talking specifically about the freedom-loving people who drove from all corners of this country to Parliament Hill to stand up and let their voice be heard that they have had enough of what our government was trying to do to us. I'm also hearing there's going to be another one. January the 31st, I'm led to believe, there are going to be large-scale pro-Canada, Canada First rallies happening in large cities across Canada. I don't have all the details, but I am following it with a little bit of interest on social media. When I get more details, I'll share them with you. Will I be there? No. I'll flat out tell you. Support the cause, but I don't go to protests. I don't find them particularly effective, and I don't think anybody's listening anyway. But sometimes it's very encouraging to get together with like-minded individuals, talk about what our issue is with the government, the issue that we're protesting, and stand up and be heard. I've got respect for it. I just don't personally do it, but I'll happily pass on the details when I get them. There is a lot of stuff that's going to be happening this week. We are getting ready for the Conservative Party's annual convention that is going to be happening out in Alberta. That's going to be an interesting one. That's when we're going to have the vote on whether or not Pierre Poilievre should stay on as leader of the Conservative Party of Canada. I have reason to believe that basically Mark Carney handed this to Pierre Poilievre. That announcement in China is not resonating well. The media is covering. They are snowplowing this for Mark Carney so that the average Canadian doesn't turn on the news and realize you're not the only one. A lot of Canadians have concerns about this. One of the things I noticed on the news all weekend, they did not cover the court's decision that it was unreasonable of the federal government to invoke the Emergencies Act. They didn't cover it. Barely a word about it. And I don't understand why. That's a major piece in our history. They spent a hell of a lot of time demonizing Donald Trump for wanting to take over Greenland, and they did not talk much at all about Mark Carney's New World Order or these Chinese EVs that are coming into our market. No discussion at all about the fact that we're going to allow those Chinese EVs to be sold here, but we also did not get a deal that would allow us to sell our cars over there. The media is snowplowing this because they have an agenda. Friends, I'm asking you, if you're going to watch the news, and I'm not discouraging you from watching the news, but watch it with a critical lens. Don't watch so much what they are telling you. Ask yourself why they're not telling you the rest of the story. The Greenland stuff is serious, though. There's a lot going on there. Donald Trump has announced he's going to tariff NATO countries that oppose the U.S. taking over Greenland. Personally, I think that's a mistake. I don't know why Donald Trump is going down that road. Donald Trump has done this Greenland thing completely wrong. And I do happen to agree that it would probably be in Canada's best interest if the U.S. had Greenland. I think it would be good for us. I think it'd be good for our national security. I think that would be great. But it can't happen unless the people of Greenland agree to it. Now, some are saying it has to be agreed to by the people of Greenland and Denmark as well. F Denmark. I don't really care what they think. They've had a lot of time to do something with Greenland and never did. Clearly, they're not adequately defending it if the Chinese and the Russians are circling the island with submarines and warships. Someone's going to move in and take Greenland. If anybody's going to take it, I'd rather it be the Americans. And no, I don't want a conflict between NATO, China, and Russia over Greenland. I just don't want it. None of that happens if the U.S. gets Greenland. But again, the Greenlandic people, they need to consent to this. You can't just annex another country. And Trump is talking tough here because that strategy usually works for him. But I'm going to suggest to the president, if anybody at the White House is listening, and statistically there are quite a few listeners in Washington for some reason, I'm going to put this out there. You guys need to try a different approach. First off, you will get so much more support for this if the Greenlandic people agree we want to become American. We want to be taken over by the Americans. Don't go in there with all kinds of bluster and say we're going to take it. Don't make jokes about their military being a couple of dog sleds. Stop doing that. You want Greenland? Show them you want them. If you want to get a date with that special person that you've really wanted to go out with for a long time, do you make fun of them to get them to go on a date with you, or do you try and ingratiate yourself to them? You know what America should be doing over in Greenland right now? They should be parading half of Hollywood and the entire music industry up there. Put on some free concerts. Hey, Greenland, look at this. You come with America and boom, you got yourself, I don't know, Justin Bieber concert for free. Hey, you come with the U.S. and look at this. You guys are getting a Starbucks. A McDonald's is going to open. You want a Walmart? We can have one set up for you in a month. That's the sort of thing you should be doing to show Greenland the grass is greener in America. Insulting them, threatening to take them by force, completely the wrong approach. It sends the wrong message around the world, and it empowers other leaders from other NATO countries to stand up and bluster and pound their chest. What do we got now? The UK, France, Denmark, and maybe even Canada sending troops to Greenland? What the hell are they going to do? They're outmanned like 700 to 1 if the U.S. did decide to invade. If the U.S. decided they were going to invade, the first people we've got to evacuate are the armed forces that are there to protect it. Let's dial the temperature back a little bit. Let's reset this conversation. And if the Greenlandic people don't want to go, it's the end of the story. You got to work out some sort of another deal where maybe you can occupy a part of it to set up a military base and defend the Arctic. Maybe the north of Greenland, the U.S. can set up some bases there. I don't know. I don't know what the solution is here, but the way Trump is going about this now is not the right approach. This has got to be agreed to by the people of Greenland, and making fun of them, threatening to take them by force is totally the wrong approach. Show them you love them. Don't tell them you're going to kidnap them. Jesus. Friends, that's it for today, but a lot is going on. By tomorrow, I will likely have some good, juicy stuff from the World Economic Forum, from the Prime Minister, and possibly even Justin Trudeau as well, and a bunch of Liberal cabinet ministers that are over there. In the meantime, if you didn't hear it yesterday, I did put out a special Sunday bonus episode explaining what the New World Order is. The New World Order is an interesting one, and frankly, it's happening. It's not a matter of do we want a New World Order? You just got to accept that it is happening. The U.S. is going to take over the Western Hemisphere. They're basically going to be the big fish here. Now, what happens to the rest of the world? That's debatable. Is that going to be the globalist one world government? So it's a one world government versus the Western Hemisphere? Or are other countries going to step up? Is there going to be a sphere of U.S. a sphere of U.S. dominance, and then another sphere on another part of the world where China is dominant, and then another sphere where Russia is the dominant power? Divide up the world regionally with a bunch of regional superpowers. That's a possibility too, but I broke it all down in a much more coherent way in yesterday's Scott Fox After 9. I'm going to leave you with the sounds of Pat James and the whole truth. Hey now, have a great day. I'll see you tomorrow.